All right. All right, we're live here. This, that. All right, hello. Got all three of us here. You can see Squeak's kind of peeking down from the bottom there. Got my old mascot Mari is back. This is something I'm going to be kind of bringing back to my channel. Um, I'm going to take a moment here to just share link to the stream here. Try to see if we can get some more people here for it. That's copy that link and just share this around on Twitter and on my different groups that I'm in on Discord. That's the, that's the thing. Yeah, just kind of share this around different places. See if I can get some people to join up from those places, and we'll get started. We're gonna talk some geeky stuff. Primarily, I just got something I really wanted to share that happened with me today, but I wanted to talk some geek stuff too because I've kind of had some things I've been wanting to talk about, so thought this seemed like a good opportunity to do it. Let's get past here, share this everywhere. Okay. Oh, no, she didn't stick around. I'm trying to get more people into the stream, not have you leave. You're a selling point, Squeaks. She may be back later, she may not. Um, yeah, that covers that. Pop that in just so I can see the chat here. All right, so um, still kind of waiting for people to come in, but we're going to get started on some fun geek discussion. Man, I got to figure out my lighting setup. Problem is, I got a light directly above me, so it's just shining on my forehead. It's just got this light shining down on my forehead. It looks really awkward. All right, so first thing actually I want to talk about is a comic, an old comic series. Well, a story arc that I recently read, and it is from Aquaman from the late 60s, 1969. This is Aquaman issues, I believe, 42 to 48, and it's a story of Mera gets kidnapped, and Aquaman goes off on this long adventure to try to find her, figure out who took her. Black Manta gets involved. It ends up leading to a rebellion in Atlantis while he's gone. Aqualad gets into his own little adventure, and it's actually a pretty good story. I really enjoyed it, and the art was some of my favorites. It's done by Jim Aparo, and the art is probably one of my favorite parts of it, especially the close up facial expressions of Aquaman. They did such a good job of really showcasing the emotion and the expression in it that I think added to the story. Now, this particular story arc, which again, Aquaman issues 42 to 48, is available on the DC Universe app. So if people want to check it out, it is right there, readily available, and I highly recommend it. I think it's a really good Aquaman story. All right, so let's talk Spider-Man: Brand New Day. I'm not going to get into spoilers because even though it seems like everybody else has just decided, screw it, throw the spoilers right out there, I try to be good about not giving away spoilers, and technically the movie's only been out for just about a week. It feels kind of early to be immediately throwing all the spoilers in, but I'll give you my thoughts in general. I enjoyed the movie. I think they did a really good job with it. One of the things I really liked is that it's a much more grounded Spider Man. We don't have him basically being Tony Stark Jr., which is what a lot of the MCU Spider Man has been, is just kind of doing all sorts of stuff. Opportunity to share the stream with some more people. Maybe I can get more people to pop in here. Yes, I love that it's a much more grounded, street level Spider Man, which has always been one of my favorite versions of the character. Heck, my introduction to Spider Man, aside from like, I think 2 issues of Spider Man comics I had as a kid, was the 1970s live action Spider Man series, which of course I didn't see in the 70s because I wasn't born yet. But the version with Nicholas Hammond, I watched that quite frequently. So, and it was very grounded. A lot of it because they didn't have the budget to do anything more, fancy, but it was a much more street level version of Spider-Man, which is one thing I liked about the new movie. I also liked the that Hulk's appearance served a purpose. A lot of times nowadays with these MCU movies, we get a lot of cameos just for the sake of saying, "Oh, hey, look, this character's here. Isn't that cool?" But they don't really serve a purpose. Bruce Banner and the Hulk served a purpose in this particular case. So I liked that. Now, admittedly, a lot of stuff with the villain I don't think they were thinking very well on. And I'm not going to get into specifics about it because, again, I think most people probably know at this point because nobody can keep a secret. But for the people who have not seen the movie yet, I am gonna not get into the details of the villain, just in case people haven't seen it and haven't been spoiled. Don't know how that would have happened, but you know, given trying to give benefit of the doubt. I think one of the big problems is something somebody else brought up that really makes a lot of sense. Kevin Feige seems to have this idea that they the characters shouldn't be comic accurate. We need to They need to make them their own version of the characters. And I personally am not a big fan of this. And one of the big reasons is because this will end up inevitably affecting the comics. These movies are meant to be an adaptation of the comics. Even if they're not an adaptation of a specific story, they're in general meant to be adapting the comics. But because obviously they want to try to draw in the movie viewers and make them comic readers, they end up changing the comics to fit the movies, which I'm really not a fan of. I don't like taking the thing that we are adapting and changing that to adapt to the thing that we were originally making to adapt it. It's kind of complicated. It really bugs me to see so many changes being made. And again, I get it. We're trying to draw in a new audience. We're trying to get people who maybe don't read comics to get into them. Get them through the movie and get them into the comics from there. But I think sometimes we put too much focus on this casual audience that we're trying to get. And we're doing it at the expense of the people who are already fans. So the people who are already fans of the comics, who like the way it's done in the comics, are kind of getting screwed over because they're more worried about bringing in new fans while ignoring the ones they already have. This is part of the reason a lot of the movies have been failing. And maybe you could say there's the whole, superhero movie fatigue. In some elements, there possibly is. But I think a bigger thing is a lot of your views are going to be from the people who are already comic book fans. But when you start basically ignoring them and trying to bring in an entirely new audience, then the original fans are going to stop watching. And clearly, your new audience isn't really showing up. So you end up with really poor numbers. This is what we've been seeing. And I mean, I could also get into the desire to make everything realistic and the same way it works in the real world. I'm not a fan of that either. And again, I get it. You want to give it some realism so people can relate. Hello, religious fanboy. Welcome. I'm just talking a little bit about adaptations of comics. And once I'm done here, I got a fun little story about something God's been doing in my life recently. Let me, once I finish this first story. Yes, I understand. You want to give it some realism so that the viewers can relate. But the problem is, I think we're starting to get a little too much of the realism because we want everything to be like it is in the real world. So it's like, well, people have those powers, they'd be jerks. So that's how we want to portray them. People wouldn't trust superheroes in the real world, so that's what we want to have them being like in the movies. Basically, everything's dark and dreary and unpleasant because that's how the real world is. But the thing is, and I'm only speaking for myself here, comic books and comic movies are an escapism. And I don't want overly real in my escapism. The real world sucks. Let's face it, it's unpleasant. You know, when I'm trying to just relax and get away from the horrors of the real world, I don't want to watch something that is just like that. I want to watch something that's different, something that's more pleasant, something where, the good guys win. Yes, there still need to be stakes, but I don't really want to see miserable things happening all the time. But hey, that's just me. Like I said, going back to what I was previously saying, in general, I enjoyed the new Spider-Man. This whole tangent completely stepped away from that, but it's kind of like the Weird Al song Albuquerque. Go through this whole thing, and it's like, I think what I was really just trying to say here is how much I hate sauerkraut. All right, now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. The main reason I wanted to do this stream here because, as you may have seen on my stream schedule, I have a stream for a geekiness and godliness devotional planned for this coming uh, Sunday. But some things have been happening that I really wanted to touch on um, here tonight. So I decided to do a little kind of impromptu stream, set it up a couple hours at a time so I could try to promote it a little bit. But like many people, I have my share of sin that I struggle with. Everybody does. No matter what people will try to tell you, no Christian truly believes they're perfect. We all have our things we struggle with as well. Admittedly, in my case, a lot of my biggest struggles, which again, like many other Christians, is in relation to sexual sin. Primarily for me, it's a lot of videos that I watch online. Well, I should say watched. I've actually been doing very well, but we'll get to that. And I'm phrasing it as videos I've watched online because obviously, if I phrase it differently, YouTube throws a fit. I don't want to deal with it. And it is something I very much struggled with. And I've constantly prayed about it, tried to be better. And not long ago, a realization came to me of, I think, why I've struggled with this so much. Now, I have made it no secret that I am not happy with the fact that I'm still single at kind of an older age. And I've prayed that it'll be on God's timing that I will find a wife. And until that time, I will be patient, trust in God, and wait. But the problem is, I continue to focus on my desire to find a wife. And because I've had to continue waiting, it has caused me to get very depressed. And in doing so, it would cause me to seek out coping mechanisms to try to move past my impatience and my depression over the situations, which of course would lead to me doing things I don't want to do. Well, it was not long ago that I realized if I stop putting all of my focus on my desire to find a wife and actually just focus on God, maybe I won't have so much trouble. So I've really been striving to keep my thoughts on God, to just focus on improving myself as a Christian, trying to have a stronger relationship with God, putting Him at the focus of everything I do. And I'll be honest, it has really helped. I have struggled so much less since I stopped focusing on my desire for a wife and started focusing on God. And the thing is, I know that when the time is right, I will get the desires of my heart. I trust that God is going to provide. And even if it can be frustrating having to wait, I'm very aware that there is no too late with God. I figure if Abraham could manage to have a son at 100 years old, it's not too late for me to find a wife. And the thing is, since I've been working and really improving, this past Tuesday, as I was at work, I started feeling like God wanted to tell me something. I didn't know what, but I could just feel it in my heart that there was something God wanted to say to me. So I started praying that, God would speak to me and that I would have ears to listen. Now, initially, of course, I kind of got in my own way because, when you start trying to listen, then you start getting, oh, well, maybe he wants to talk about this. Maybe it has to do with this. What if it's about this? And to the point where I had to be just like, Mike, shut up, shut up and listen. And it's not always easy because, you get in your own head and it's hard to stop. But finally, I felt like maybe what I need to do is while I'm sitting here at my desk, not a lot going on, why not listen to a devotional? See if maybe God wants to speak to me through someone else. And I had actually earlier that day been saying, I kind of want to get back to listening to Dr. David Jeremiah's daily audio devotionals anyway. So I decided to take a listen to it, see if maybe God wanted to speak to me through that. And his message for that particular day was about Proverbs. He started a series on Proverbs, and he had plenty to say. But one thing in particular was he suggested reading a chapter of Proverbs every day because there are 31 Proverbs and most of the months have 31 days. Obviously, there's some that have 30 and then there's February, but you know. So by reading a chapter each day that coincides with the day of the week, with the day of the month, I should say, you will work your way through Proverbs and you continue doing this every, month after month, you're going to get a lot out of it because there's so much to gain from Proverbs. So I decided to do it. And of course, Tuesday was the 4th. I read chapter 4, and it was a good devotional. I didn't feel anything in particular speaking to me on that one. Yesterday, the 5th, it got to talking about the dangers of an immoral woman and how it's important to stay away from them. And I think that did fit a lot of my struggles and the importance of fleeing from those sins, which is something that's very important to remember. With a lot of sin, we're told to fight against it. Sexual sin, we're very specifically told to flee from it because no other sin so affects our bodies as much as that. But then there was today. Now, while I was at work, into my head popped a memory of a time that I had failed in the past. And unfortunately, it got stuck in my head. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't get it out. I prayed for God to take the thought away, but I didn't want to let go of it. Which, let's face it, when you get something stuck in your head, it can be hard to let it go. But I really wanted to get rid of it because I did not want to fall back into old habits. I've been doing, as I said, really, really well. And I didn't want to fall back. So after a little bit, I decided, well, let me read my chapter of Proverbs for today. Chapter 6 of Proverbs got heavily into adultery. Now, to me, adultery is more than just sleeping with another person's spouse. I mean, Jesus said himself that any man who lusts upon a woman has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And one of the main things with adultery is that it is cheating. And even if two people are single, there is still that element of cheating in it because you're you're basically cheating on your own purity that God wants us to have. We're cheating on our future spouse even if we haven't met them yet. And to be honest, we're hurting God. And reading through that chapter and really taking all that in really made me even more strongly not want to fall to that sin. Shortly after that, I decided I wanted to take in some more. So I decided to look to Billy Graham. I have recently been kind of listening to a lot of Billy Graham's old sermons. His YouTube channel actually has a playlist with like over 200 of his sermons. So I've been kind of working my way through that playlist. And today, ironically, but nothing's ironic with God, the very next video in the playlist that I was on is about fighting temptation. So between the proverb I read and the message from Billy Graham, I was able to overcome, get away from those thoughts in my head, and keep myself clean. And it's not something where I'm surprised that God was able to do that for me, but it never stops just amazing me how much God can do and how he can take something a few days ago and start the process of preparing me for what he knew I was going to face today. He knew what I was going to need to get through today. And he started planting those seeds a couple days ago. And I love the fact that he works that way, even when we don't understand. Because when I first started reading through those proverbs and listening to that message from Dr. Jeremiah, I still didn't really know what it was specifically God was trying to tell me. And then today I figured it out, that God knew what was coming and he wanted to protect me. And I love that. And it's something that I wanted to share because it's such a blessing knowing that God is always trying to lead us in the right direction. And he's always ready to help get us through the struggles that we're facing. It's very important to try to keep our ears open because God's always trying to speak to us. Sometimes it's through a dream, sometimes through a thought he puts in our head, sometimes it's through something we hear from someone else, as was the case for me with the message from Dr. Jeremiah. So, yeah, I just really wanted to share that because I love it. Yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to do here. I realize it's much like most of my streams tend to be. It's a fairly short one. I didn't really have a huge amount that I wanted to get into. I just really wanted to touch on that because I felt it was really important. And I think that a lot of people need to remember that God wants to talk to us. He wants to give us a heads up on the things that are coming so that we can be prepared to face the struggles that we're going to face. But yeah, that's all I really have for this one. Come Sunday, I'm going to be doing a devotional. I'm going to maybe have some songs. We're going to do some more geek talk. We're going to have a good time. Hopefully, you can get a decent amount of people here and we'll just have some fun. But that is all I've got for this particular video. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me, and those of you who watch it after the fact, I want to also thank you for checking it out. And I hope that what happened for me leads to possible help for you guys. So we're going to end it there, and I will see you guys on Sunday.